Dr. Emily Parker hadn't meant to discover aliens on a Tuesday morning. She'd been running routine checks on NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Array, coffee growing cold beside her keyboard when the pattern caught her eye. At first, she assumed it was an equipment malfunction. The signal was too regular, too structured to be natural background radiation. "Hey Mike, you got a minute?" She called out to the night janitor, who was just finishing his shift. Emily had always appreciated Mike Thompson's practical wisdom, developed over 30 years of watching scientists come and go. He shuffled over, leaning on his mop. "Something keeping you up, Doc?" he asked, peering at her monitors. "Look at this pattern. It repeats every 4.3 seconds, but with subtle variations in the subharmonics. Natural phenomena don't do that." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up additional data streams. "And it's coming from at least 15 different sources, all transmitting on slightly different frequencies." Mike whistled low. "Sounds like you found yourself some chatty neighbors up there." As they watched, new patterns emerged. The signals weren't just random broadcasts. They were messages, declarations, and what appeared to be military demonstrations. Each transmission carried detailed technical specifications, weapon capabilities, and shield frequencies, as if the civilizations were engaged in an interstellar arms race conducted entirely through propaganda. Within hours, Emily's lab was swarming with government officials, NASA administrators, military personnel, and intelligence agents crowded around her monitors, debating Earth's response. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Draft after draft of humanity's first message to the stars was written and discarded. "We need to show them our strength," General Harrison argued, pushing for a demonstration of Earth's military capabilities. "No, we should lead with scientific achievements," Dr. Rodriguez countered. "Show them we're civilized." In the chaos of competing voices, Mike Thompson quietly cleaned around the edges of the room, listening. As the debate reached a fever pitch, he paused near Emily's desk. "You know," he said, just loud enough for her to hear, "my grandma used to say, those who talk the most usually know the least." He smiled, wrinkles deepening around his eyes. "Maybe we don't need to say anything at all." Emily sat up straighter, her mind racing. She reviewed the alien transmissions again, this time focusing not on their content, but on their purpose. Each civilization was broadcasting their capabilities, their defenses, their technological achievements, and in doing so, they were revealing their vulnerabilities. "General Harrison," she called out suddenly. The room fell silent. "What if we didn't respond?" "Didn't respond? That's your suggestion?" The general's face reddened. "Think about it." Emily stood, gesturing to her screens. "Every civilization out there is shouting their secrets into space. They're so busy trying to intimidate each other that they're giving away critical intelligence. But they don't know anything about us." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. Mike nodded approvingly from his corner. "Strategic silence," the general muttered, stroking his chin. "It's unprecedented." Within days, a classified directive was issued. Earth would maintain absolute radio silence. The public would be kept unaware of the alien transmissions to prevent accidental broadcasts. A new agency was formed, the Silent Watch Initiative, dedicated to monitoring and analyzing alien communications without revealing Earth's technological level. As Emily cleared her lab that night, Mike was finishing his final rounds. "You know what's funny, Doc?" he said, emptying her trash bin. "All these advanced aliens out there, broadcasting their hearts out, and humanity's first real advantage in the galaxy came from knowing when to keep quiet." Emily smiled, gathering her things. Sometimes the strongest voice is the one that stays silent. As she left the lab, the alien transmissions continued to flood in, each one revealing more secrets to those who simply listened. In the vast darkness of space, Earth maintained its silence, watching, learning, and preparing for whatever might come next. Mike was the last to leave, turning off the lights with a knowing smile. Sometimes the wisest person in the room was the one no one noticed at all. Commander Jack Reynolds stood at the viewport of the International Space Station's new observation module, his reflection ghosting against the stars. 3 months had passed since Earth's decision to maintain silence, and something was different about the Kuiper Belt's familiar band of ice and rock. "There," he muttered, adjusting the quantum imaging array. The false color display highlighted what normal sensors missed, the subtle distortion of a cloaked alien vessel. Not one, but 7 of them, arranged in a pattern that couldn't be coincidental. His secure comm link chimed. "Commander, Dr. Parker's team is ready for you." In the station's newly constructed Stellar Intelligence Center, Emily Parker had transformed her modest lab into a state-of-the-art monitoring facility. Holographic displays showed real-time analysis of alien transmissions, while AI systems worked to decode their languages and technology. "They're not just observing us," Emily explained, bringing up a 3D model of the solar system. "They're building a profile. Every civilization they've encountered has immediately responded with demonstrations of force or technological achievement. Our silence makes us an anomaly." Jack leaned over the display, studying the alien vessel's positions. "They're waiting for us to slip up." "Exactly. But their curiosity is giving us an advantage." Emily's fingers danced across the controls, highlighting civilian satellites around Earth. "Project Nightshade. While they watch us, we're reprogramming our existing satellite network to monitor them. Every transmission, every movement, every energy signature. We're learning more about them than they could imagine." The door slid open, admitting Mike Thompson. The janitor had been officially retired, but now wore a consultant's badge. His practical insights had proven too valuable to lose. "Still cleaning up messes," he quipped, nodding to the alien ships on display. "Though these are a bit bigger than usual." "Mike's been helping us understand their behavioral patterns," Emily explained. "He's got a knack for seeing the simple truths we sometimes miss, like how they're all showing off for each other." Mike gestured to a recent transmission from the Korthak Empire. "Reminds me of schoolyard bullies. The louder they shout, the more they're trying to hide." Jack watched as the alien transmission displayed a weapons test, completely with detailed specifications. "They're not just showing off. They're threatening each other, and giving away their secrets in the process." A junior analyst burst into the room, tablet in hand. "Commander, Doctor, you need to see this. The Korthak just broadcasted the specifications for their new shield technology. They're using modulated quantum fields, but there's a fatal flaw in the resonance pattern." Emily studied the data, her eyes widening. "They don't even realize they've broadcast the frequency that could collapse their entire defense system." "And now we know it," Jack said quietly, "along with every other weakness they've inadvertently revealed." Mike shook his head, amused. All that advanced technology, and they never learned the simple truth. Loose lips sink ships. The room fell silent as a new alert flashed across the screens. One of the alien vessels in the Kuiper Belt was moving, adjusting its position for a better view of Earth. "They're getting impatient," Jack observed. "Sooner or later, they'll make a move." "Then we better be ready," Emily replied, pulling up Project Nightshade's latest developments. "Our new stealth satellites go online next week. We'll be able to monitor them even more closely without revealing our capabilities." As the team worked, Mike quietly cleaned the already spotless windows, listening and observing as he always had. "You know," he said finally, "my father used to say that the best time to prepare for war is when everyone else is too busy talking about it." Jack nodded, watching the alien ship's movement. Earth's silence had bought them time. Time to learn, to prepare, to understand their potential adversaries. While the galaxy broadcast its secrets to the void, humanity watched and waited, gathering strength in the shadows. "Keep watching," he ordered, "and keep listening. Every transmission they send is another advantage they don't know they're giving us." In the vast darkness above, the alien ships continued their vigil, unaware that their observers had become the observed. Amanda Hayes hadn't slept in 36 hours, but sleep was a luxury Earth couldn't afford. The former CIA operative stood in the underground command center of Project Nightshade, surrounded by the most unusual team ever assembled for planetary defense. "Show me what you hear, Marcus," she said to the young man sitting cross-legged on the floor, headphones wrapped around his ears. Marcus Turner was autistic, with an extraordinary ability to recognize patterns in alien transmissions that even I missed. "They're scared," Marcus said, rocking slightly. "The Korthak. Their broadcasts are getting louder, more frequent, like when birds sing too much before a storm." Beside him, Dr. Rachel Williams, a former NSA cryptographer with synesthesia, nodded in agreement. "Their transmission colors have shifted. More reds, sharp edges, aggressive undertones." Amanda had handpicked each member of her ghost listeners, individuals whose unique neurological conditions gave them insights into alien communications that conventional analysts couldn't match. Together, they formed humanity's secret weapon in understanding their silent observers. The massive screen at the front of the room displayed real-time translations of alien broadcasts, each one revealing more about the complex political web humanity had stumbled into. Dr. Emily Parker's voice came through the comm system, patched in from the space station. "Amanda, we're picking up encrypted transmissions from the Korthak fleet. They're coordinating something big." Marcus suddenly stood, pulling off his headphones. "It's not us," he said urgently. "They're planning to attack the Orcs system. The peaceful ones, the ones who make beautiful music in their transmissions." Rachel's hands flew across her keyboard, bringing up the relevant data streams. "He's right. The Korthak are broadcasting victory songs already. They're not even trying to hide their intentions." Amanda felt the weight of the information settle on her shoulders. The Orcs were one of the gentler species they'd observed, known for their artistic transmissions and philosophical debates. Their technology was advanced, but purely defensive. They'd be no match for the Korthak war fleet. "We could warn them," Dr. Williams suggested quietly. "A simple anonymous transmission, and break our silence." Amanda countered, though the same thought had crossed her mind. "The moment we transmit anything, we reveal ourselves. Our advantage disappears." Mike Thompson, who had taken to bringing coffee to the ghost listeners during his rounds, spoke up from the doorway. "Sometimes doing nothing is harder than doing something, especially when it's the right thing to do." The room fell silent as the implications of their knowledge sank in. They had the power to save billions of lives, but at what cost to Earth's security? Marcus began humming, a habit that helped him think. "The Orcs broadcasts. They're like Mozart. Complex, beautiful. The Korthak are like heavy metal played wrong." If the Mozart stops, Amanda understood his meaning. The loss of the Orcs would irreversibly change the galaxy's culture. But Earth's silence was protecting billions of humans. "Commander Reynolds," she activated the comlink. "Are you seeing this?" "Affirmative." Jack's voice was grim. "The Korthak fleet is already mobilizing. We have maybe 48 hours before they reach the Orcs system." Dr. Parker joined the conversation. "There might be a third option. The Orcs' defensive systems use quantum harmonics. If we could find a way to strengthen their shields without revealing our involvement." Amanda turned to Marcus. "Could we hide a message in the background radiation? Something that would look natural, but that their scientists might notice." Marcus rocked faster, excited, like hiding a warning in a sunset. "Yes, yes. They study background radiation. They talk about it in their science broadcasts." For the next 12 hours, the ghost listeners worked tirelessly. They composed a message that would appear as a natural phenomenon, a subtle pattern in the cosmic background radiation that the Orcs' sensitive instruments would detect. It contained the shield frequencies they needed to defend against the Korthak's weapons. As they sent the carefully disguised warning out into the void, Amanda watched her unusual team of guardians. Earth's silence had created something unique, a group of individuals whose differences had become humanity's greatest strength. The galaxy continued its loud conversation, unaware that Earth was learning to whisper. Lieutenant David Martinez's hands trembled as he watched the Vraxian capital fall. From his observation post on Europa, hidden beneath kilometers of ice, he witnessed what would later be known as the 20-hour genocide. The Korthak hadn't just invaded, they had systematically erased the civilization. "Sir," his communications officer whispered, "they're still broadcasting. The Vraxians, they're begging for help." David closed his eyes, but he couldn't shut out the desperate transmissions. The Vraxians had discovered Earth's warning to the Orcs, hidden in the background radiation. In their panic, they had begun broadcasting everything. Military codes, shield frequencies, civilian shelter locations, hoping Earth would save them too. "Lieutenant," Amanda Hayes' voice came through the secure channel from Project Nightshade. "Are you recording all of this?" "Every second," he replied, his voice hoarse. "The Korthak aren't even trying to hide their tactics. They're broadcasting their victory in real time, showing every weakness they exploit, every defense they breach." On his primary screen, he watched as the Vraxians' last planetary shield collapsed. Their final transmission had unknowingly contained the exact frequency vulnerabilities the Korthak needed. "They're doing it on purpose." Marcus Turner's voice joined the channel, thick with emotion. "The Korthak want everyone to watch their broadcasts. They're enjoying it." In the underwater base, David's team worked in haunted silence, documenting everything. Engineers noted weapon specifications, tactical analysts recorded battle strategies, and linguists translated the dying screams of a civilization that had talked too much. Commander Reynolds connected from the space station. "Martinez, what's the status of the Silent Fleet?" David turned to his secondary display, showing the massive construction bays beneath Europa's ice. Black ships, designed with every weakness and vulnerability they'd learned from alien broadcasts, were taking shape. They were humanity's insurance policy, built in secret while the galaxy shouted its secrets to the void. "Production is accelerating, sir." After this, he glanced at the continuing destruction. "The crews are motivated." "David," Emily Parker's voice was gentle, "you need to see this. The Vraxian capital's central archive. They're broadcasting their entire cultural database. Art, music, literature, everything they were." Tears froze on his cheeks in Europa's cold. "Download everything. We'll remember them, even if we can't speak of them yet." Mike Thompson, who had insisted on being stationed on Europa to keep an eye on the young ones, placed a steady hand on David's shoulder. Sometimes bearing witness is the hardest kind of action. The next few hours were eternal. They watched as the Korthak methodically destroyed every Vraxian city, every colony, every orbital station. Each act of destruction came with detailed broadcasts of how it was accomplished, as if the Korthak were teaching a lesson to the galaxy. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting changes in other civilizations' broadcasts. They're going quiet." David leaned forward. One by one, the usually chatty alien civilizations were reducing their transmissions. The Korthak's demonstration had worked. Fear was spreading across the galaxy. "They still don't understand," Amanda said softly. "It's not about being quiet. It's about listening." As the last Vraxian transmission faded into static, David made his way to the construction base. The Silent Fleet grew in the artificial twilight, each ship a promise that humanity would not suffer the same fate. They had watched, they had learned, and they had built. "The Korthak just sealed their own fate," he told his crew. "Every broadcast, every boast, every demonstration, they've given us the blueprint of their destruction. When we finally speak, it will be in a voice they never expected to hear." Above them, through kilometers of ice and cold Europa waters, the galaxy's broadcasts continued. But now they carried a different message. Silence could mean either weakness or strength, and no one knew which Earth's silence meant. They would find out soon enough. Marine Colonel Rebecca Foster stood in the zero-gravity combat chamber aboard Europa Station, watching her space combat teams train. Their black combat suits, designed by Dr. James Cooper, absorbed all light and sensor readings, a physical manifestation of Earth's doctrine of silence. Again, she ordered, as the holographic Korthak warriors materialized around her team. The simulation was built from thousands of hours of intercepted combat footage, every move and tactic learned from the aliens' own boastful broadcasts. "They're getting faster," Dr. Cooper observed from the control room, his wild gray hair floating in the station's low gravity. "But the Korthak will be stronger." Rebecca watched as her team moved through the combat sequence. They don't need to be stronger. They just need to be smarter. The simulation reached its climax as Sergeant Maria Santos executed a perfect counter to a Korthak grappling technique, a move the aliens had proudly demonstrated in their military broadcasts. The holographic warrior flickered and vanished. "That's what I'm talking about," Cooper exclaimed, his excitement causing him to drift upward until he bumped against the ceiling. "Using their own techniques against them. It's perfect." Rebecca allowed herself a small smile. 6 months of training had transformed her Marines into something entirely new. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were living weapons forged in silence and shadow. The intercom crackled. "Colonel Foster to the Void Wraith Bay. Priority 1. In the massive construction chamber, Rebecca found Commander Reynolds inspecting their newest ship. The vessel seemed to drink in the light, its surface a perfect black that confused the eye. It was beautiful in its terrible purpose. "The last one," Jack said, running his hand along the hull. "The silent fleet is complete." Rebecca nodded, remembering the Vraxian transmission that had haunted her dreams. Not a moment too soon. The Korthak are getting bolder. Dr. Cooper's stealth systems. Testing at full capacity. As far as their sensors are concerned, these ships might as well be ghosts. She pulled up a tactical display on her wrist computer, and thanks to their endless broadcasting, we know exactly where to hit them. The door slid open as Dr. Cooper floated in, followed by his team of engineers. "Wait until you see what else these beauties can do," he grinned, pulling up schematics. "Every weakness they've broadcast, every flaw they've revealed. We've built countermeasures for all of them. And a few they haven't even discovered yet." Rebecca's comm unit chimed, a message from Amanda Hayes' ghost listeners. "The Korthak are planning something big. Their broadcast patterns have changed. They're tired of our silence," Jack said grimly. "We knew this day would come." In the training chamber, Rebecca's teams were finishing their final drills. These men and women had trained in perfect silence, learning to communicate through gesture and touch alone. They were the apex of human adaptation, warriors who had learned to thrive in the dark. "Colonel," Dr. Cooper called out, his voice unusually serious. "There's something you should see." He brought up a recording from their long-range sensors. The Korthak fleet was assembling, larger than anything they'd seen before. But it wasn't their numbers that caught Rebecca's attention. It was their formation. "They're arranging themselves exactly like they did before the Vraxian attack," she realized. "History doesn't repeat itself," Jack quoted, "but it often rhymes." Rebecca turned to her teams, now gathered in the observation bay. Their black suits seemed to merge with the darkness of space behind them. They had trained for this moment, prepared in ways their enemies couldn't imagine. "Earth has been silent for a long time," she addressed them. "We've watched. We've learned. We've prepared. The Korthak think our silence means weakness." She gestured to the fleet of void wraiths waiting in their bays. "Let's show them what it really means." As her warriors moved to their ships, Rebecca caught her reflection in the viewport. Earth had transformed its silence into strength, its patience into power. The galaxy had never seen warriors like these, born in silence, trained in shadow, ready to strike. The time for listening was ending. The time for action was about to begin. The Korthak diplomatic fleet emerged from hyperspace in a blaze of ceremony and broadcast signals. 12 massive warships, their hull designs intentionally threatening, arranged themselves in attack formation while broadcasting their demands in every known frequency. Admiral William Nash watched from the bridge of his flagship, the Void Wraith Silence, as the alien vessels positioned themselves above Earth. His ship, like the rest of Earth's fleet, remained hidden in the sensor shadow of the moon, invisible to even the most advanced detection systems. They're broadcasting their shield frequencies. Marcus Turner's voice came through the secure channel. It's a show of force. They think we can't hurt them even if we know their weaknesses. Admiral, Colonel Foster's voice was steady. My teams are in position. Nash studied the tactical display, where Dr. Cooper's analysis highlighted every vulnerability the Korthak had unwittingly revealed over years of boastful broadcasts. Remember, non-lethal takedown only. We're making a point, not starting a war. The Korthak's message boomed through every communication system on Earth. Primitive species. Your silence ends today. Demonstrate your capabilities, or be classified as a subordinate civilization. In the command center beneath the lunar surface, Amanda Hayes and her ghost listeners monitor the alien communications. They're so sure of themselves, she reported. Their internal comms are full of jokes about how easy this will be. Time to change their humor, Nash said quietly. Execute Operation Whisper. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Korthak's primary communication array suddenly failed. Their backup systems activated, only to encounter strange harmonics that matched exactly the frequencies their own broadcasts had revealed as disruptive. What is this? The Korthak commander demanded, his message now broadcasting on only a single channel. Some kind of natural phenomenon. Defensive systems failing. Marcus translated their internal communications, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. They can't understand why their own technology is turning against them. Nash watched as the alien ships tried to power up their weapons, only to find each system precisely countered by frequencies and techniques they themselves had demonstrated in their military broadcasts. Their mighty fleet, stripped of its defenses, hung helpless in space. Now, Colonel, Nash ordered. The Void Wraiths emerged from shadow, their black hulls teeming to drink in the sunlight. Foster's teams, trained in perfect silence, executed their boarding operations with precision that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. Admiral, Foster reported, we have control of their bridge. No casualties on either side. The Korthak commander, a towering figure in ornate armor, found himself surrounded by silent warriors in black suits that seemed to bend light around them. His crew, disabled by targeted electromagnetic pulses matched to their nervous system's frequencies, lay unconscious at their stations. Nash's voice, when it finally broke Earth's silence, carried the weight of years of preparation. Your broadcasts have been received and analyzed. Your weaknesses are known. Your tactics are understood. Your technology is compromised. Through the secure channel, he heard Mike Thompson chuckle. Bet they wish they'd kept their mouths shut now. The Korthak commander, faced with warriors he couldn't detect and technology that knew his every weakness, did something unprecedented in his species' history. He surrendered without a word. As Foster's teams secured the alien vessels, Nash received a priority message from the lunar base. Amanda's ghost listeners had detected a surge of encrypted transmissions throughout the galaxy. The other civilizations had witnessed Earth's response, and the message was clear. Silence did not equal weakness. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the Korthak fleet is requesting permission to retreat. Nash studied the alien commander's face on his view screen. The once proud warrior now understood what Earth had known all along. True power lies not in boasting of strength, but in knowing when to hold it in reserve. Let them go, Nash ordered. They have a message to deliver. As the defeated fleet limped away, Nash knew that Earth's silence had spoken more loudly than any broadcast ever could. The galaxy would never be the same. and they were just getting started. Strategic Commander Sarah Mitchell watched from the bridge of the Void Wraith, Shadow Strike, as the Korthak War Fleet emerged from hyperspace. Unlike their previous diplomatic mission, this time they brought 300 warships, the largest assault force ever assembled in known space. They're broadcasting on all frequencies again, Marcus reported from Earth. But something's different. The patterns are desperate. Sarah understood why. Their previous defeat had shaken the Korthak's confidence, but more importantly, it had wounded their pride. Now they were overcompensating, drowning their fear in a tsunami of threats and military displays. "Commander," Dr. Cooper's voice crackled through the comm. "Operation Thunderclap is ready. The dimensional shadow drive is operating at full capacity." Sarah touched the cold surface of her command console. The technology they'd reverse-engineered from years of studying alien broadcasts had produced something unprecedented. Ships that could step between the moments of space-time itself. "All ships, execute Thunderclap," she ordered. "Remember your training. Silent strike protocols." Across the battlefield, Earth's fleet of Void Wraiths shifted into dimensional shadow. To the Korthak sensors, it would appear as if they had simply ceased to exist. The truth was far more terrifying. Colonel Foster's voice came through. "Strike teams in position. Ready on your mark." The Korthak Supreme Commander's voice boomed across space. "Your two HCKs will not savu this time. Surrender now or execute," Sarah commanded. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. The Void Wraiths emerged from dimensional shadows inside the Korthak formation, their black hulls seemingly materializing from nowhere. Each human ship knew exactly where to strike, targeting weaknesses the Korthak had broadcast over years of boasting. "Their shield harmonics are failing," Dr. Cooper reported gleefully. "Everything they ever broadcast, every demonstration, every parade. We used it all." Sarah watched as Foster's teams, moving like ghosts in their light-absorbing suits, boarded key enemy vessels. The Korthak, for all their strength, found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their every move before they made it. "Commander," Amanda's voice was urgent. "The ghost listeners are picking up something new. The Korthak, they're calling for help." Sarah felt a chill. From whom? Everyone. They're broadcasting their distress to every civilization in range. But, Amanda paused. No one is answering. Through her viewport, Sarah saw the massive Korthak flagship trying to coordinate its failing fleet. Their notorious discipline was crumbling in the face of an enemy they couldn't see or predict. Lieutenant Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. "Ma'am, they're attempting to access their quantum devastator weapons." "Not today," Sarah said quietly. She pressed a sequence on her console, transmitting the exact counter-frequencies they'd learned from the Korthak's own weapons tests. Across the enemy fleet, their most powerful weapons went dark. "This is for the Vraxians," she heard someone whisper over the comm. The battle reached its crescendo as the human fleet executed a maneuver that the Korthak themselves had boasted about in their military demonstrations, but with a precision its inventors had never imagined possible. Ship after ship was disabled, their crews rendered unconscious by targeted electromagnetic pulses. "Supreme Commander," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying the weight of Earth's long silence. "Your fleet is defeated. Your weapons are useless. Your tactics are known." The response came not from the Supreme Commander, but from a junior officer who had seized control of the flagship's comm system. "How? How did you know everything?" "We listened," Sarah replied simply. "While you shouted your greatness to the stars, we listened. While you broadcast your parades and demonstrations, we listened. While you boasted of your weapons and tactics, we listened." The silence that followed was profound. Across the battlefield, disabled Korthak ships drifted like dead leaves in a cosmic wind. Earth's fleet, still barely visible against the darkness of space, maintained their perfect formation. "Commander Mitchell," Admiral Nash's voice came through. "The Galactic Council is requesting emergency communication with Earth." Sarah smiled. Finally, after all these years, it was time for Earth to speak. And the galaxy would never forget what silence had taught them. The observation deck of Earth's first official diplomatic vessel, Whispered Truth, offered a spectacular view of the approaching Galactic Council ships. Admiral Nash stood beside Dr. Emily Parker, watching as representatives from 15 civilizations arrived for the unprecedented summit. They're broadcasting differently now, Emily noted, checking her datapad. More measured. Cautious. They've learned, Nash replied, though probably not the right lesson. Below them, Mike Thompson was teaching Marcus how to play chess in the crew lounge. The janitor-turned-advisor had insisted on being present for this historic moment, claiming that someone needs to keep an eye on all these important folks. Checkmate, Marcus announced, his pattern recognition skills proving as effective in games as in signal analysis. The ship's comm system activated, Galactic Council representatives requesting permission to dock. As the alien diplomats filed into the conference chamber, Amanda Hayes studied their body language. Her years of reading their transmissions had taught her to recognize fear masked as courtesy, uncertainty hidden behind ceremony. The Orcs representative spoke first, their melodious voice carrying across the chamber. "We owe you our existence. Your warning, hidden in the cosmic background radiation, saved our civilization. A warning you were wise enough to hear," Commander Mitchell replied from her position near the viewport. "While others broadcast their strengths, you had the wisdom to listen for whispers." The Korthak representative, no longer wearing the ornate armor of their military tradition, stepped forward. "We have come to propose a new protocol for interstellar communications." "No," Admiral Nash said quietly. "You've come to understand why we chose silence." Dr. Parker activated the central display, showing years of compiled data, every broadcast, every boast, every military demonstration that had revealed crucial weaknesses. The aliens watched in growing horror as they realized the full extent of their self-inflicted vulnerability. "Your civilization," the Korthak representative said, "chose wisdom over pride." Colonel Foster, standing guard with her silent warriors, allowed herself a small smile. "We chose to listen when everyone else was too busy talking." The next few hours transformed galactic civilization. The Council adopted what would become known as the Earth Doctrine: strategic silence, measured communication, and the understanding that true strength often lies in what remains unsaid. As the delegates filed out, Mike Thompson approached Admiral Nash. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said, straightening his maintenance uniform. "All this started because we knew when to keep quiet." "Speaking of which," Nash replied, "I've been meaning to ask, how did a janitor become so wise in the ways of silence?" Mike smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. 20 years of marriage, Admiral. You learn a lot about the power of keeping quiet." In the ship's command center, Marcus suddenly sat up straighter at his monitoring station. "The broadcasts, they're stopping. All across the galaxy, civilizations are going quiet." "Not quiet," Amanda corrected, her ghost listeners nodding in agreement. "They're learning to whisper." Dr. Parker joined Nash at the viewport, watching the Council ships depart. "What do you think the galaxy will look like now?" she asked. "Different," he replied. "Better, maybe. When you stop shouting, you start noticing things, important things." Commander Mitchell's voice came over the comm. "Admiral, the Vraxian Memorial is ready." In the great void of space, a small beacon activated. It began broadcasting the cultural database of the lost Vraxian civilization. Their art, their music, their stories. But now it transmitted in a new way, encoded in subtle variations of background radiation, a whisper that only those who knew how to listen would hear. "We remember," Nash said softly, "and we learned from their sacrifice." As Earth's diplomatic vessel prepared to return home, the galaxy had changed. The age of boastful broadcasts and technological showmanship was over. A new era had begun, one where power was measured not in the volume of one's voice, but in the wisdom of one's silence. Mike Thompson, making his final rounds of the ship, smiled at the quiet hum of machinery. Sometimes, he told no one in particular, the strongest voice is the one that knows when to stay silent. And in the vast darkness of space, Earth's silence had finally spoken its piece.